AAA predicts 55 million people will travel 50 miles or more from home this Thanksgiving. That's a 2% increase over last year. Most travelers will drive to their destinations, much like last year. Nearly 50 million people are expected to travel by car. My guest today on Weekend Connection has a personal story to share about the deadly dangers of distracted driving, especially around the holidays. So, let's get connected. My guest today on Weekend Connection is Shelley Forney, a founding member of Focus Driven, a nonprofit community organization. Their mission is to support victims of cell phone distracted driving and families of victims and increase public awareness of the dangers of cell phone distracted driving. Shelley, thank you for joining us today on Weekend Connection.
Well, it's my pleasure to be with you.
Shelley, I'd like for you to explain to our audience what the motivation was in the establishment of Focus Driven several years ago.
Focus Driven was brought together by families who have lost a loved one, in particular children, due to a cell phone distracted driver or a driver who was texting and took the life of their child. We ended up joining that group back in 2008. I have 3 children, my oldest Jessica, 12, my middle daughter Erica, 9, and my youngest Valerie at the time was 3.5. And we were getting ready to head over the mountains to go see family for the Thanksgiving holiday. Erica had just finished her last day of school for the Thanksgiving break and was hopped on her bicycle to head home, which was about 4 blocks south of our home at her elementary school. As she was on her way home, she was about 15 pedals from our front door when she was struck by a neighbor. She had a 5,000-pound Ford Expedition SUV, a pretty large vehicle. She felt a sudden thud and didn't know what had happened. And the reason she didn't know what had happened was her eyes were in her lap as she was finishing a phone conversation. She had hit Erica head-on with that 5,000-pound SUV. Unbeknownst to her, Erica hit that windshield, flipped 360, and landed 15 feet back from where she was hit on the back of her head. This driver got out, saw her lying on the ground, realized she had not only hit something but someone. We were alerted by friends who were walking their kids home that day. They came to the house and knocked on the door. My husband answered, and from there on out, we spent the next 2 days in Children's Hospital. We lost her on Thanksgiving Day, the day you're supposed to be so grateful for all you have. We had to let her go from severe brain trauma. Erica was in the bike lane. She was doing everything right, what she was supposed to do. She didn't have her helmet on that day, but we were told if she did have her helmet on, she wouldn't have survived. The driver wasn't speeding. She wasn't a bad driver. She simply made a choice that day to make a phone call, and that phone call took Erica's life. This loss was so horrific to our family that I said, I do not want any other family to have to suffer and go through what we've been through. Ever since then, I have been educating and advocating to raise awareness about distracted driving. And ever since then, I've been speaking out against the issue, and I travel the country and wanting to educate people about this issue, and that's how we got started.
Shelley, it goes without saying that cell phone use has grown dramatically over the last 20 years, and with it, a substantial increase in cell phone usage while driving. Shelley, how large of a problem is distracted driving today?
It is a horrific problem. I think our society has just been trained that this is safe to do, so go ahead and do it. You know, we have the technology. It's right at your fingertips. Why not use it in your car? With basically a computer right in front of your face in the dash where you can update your Facebook and read email and do Twitter, which is just horrible to think that they think that that is a safe thing to do. 1 out of every 4 crashes today is caused by a distracted driver, some type of a distraction, be it a cell phone, a text, turning around to pick up a toy, changing the radio station. I think that number is even underestimated. Not everyone tells the truth as to the cause of the crash. People are afraid of being sued if it was because they were on a phone or texting, and so they might say it was some other reason. So I don't believe that statistic is 100% accurate.
Shelley, has there been an increase in distracted driving this past year?
Absolutely, you bet. More and more people are texting. we're on board with that as well. I didn't text up until 2 years ago, and neither did my daughter, and she and I use that as a form of communication now. Obviously not in our car, but more and more people are texting, and that number just continues to skyrocket and go through the roof as it's such a convenient form of communication.
My guest today on Weekend Connection is Shelley Forney, a motivational safety speaker whose mission is to educate drivers and raise awareness about the epidemic of distracted driving that forever changed her life. Shelley, I want to believe that most people understand that talking on a cell phone or texting is a dangerous behavior while driving, so why do people continue with that type of behavior?
Having that technology at our fingertips all the time makes it hard to resist, and it's become an addiction for people. A lot of people were unaware. In fact, the day that Erica's crash happened in 2008, I was on my Bluetooth. It was the last day I'd used it. I never use my phone in my car in any way now, after what we had been through. But at the time, just like everyone else, we, believe what society taught us, which was that, hey, if you have a Bluetooth, your hands are on the wheel, and that makes you safe. And so we, just like everyone else, got it and used it. And that's the problem, is society has taught us all that, hey, this is safe. We've made cars Bluetooth capable, so go ahead and use it. But your mind is distracted by that phone conversation, whether you have two hands on the wheel or one, and that's when these crashes happen. So it is not safer, and it is an addiction. And teaching people about that and educating them about your need to be constantly, connected to others through your phone is a deadly consequence and a deadly choice if you continue to do so. Something I say a lot that really resonates with people is, this is really like playing Russian roulette with your life. How could I have ever known that, November 25th of 2008 would have been the last day that I would, see my daughter alive? And we never thought we'd be a statistic, but here we are. And it was all because of this addiction to constantly need to use your phone in the car. And that's exactly what happened with our driver.
We're talking about establishing a distracted-free zone while driving on Weekend Connection today on BBN. And Shelley, I was alarmed when I read that half of teenagers send 50 or more text messages a day, or 1,500 texts a month.
Yes, the texting issue has really, truly become an epidemic. There are so many teens out there that this is their form of communication. They really, truly communicate through texting. It's just the way that they've been raised, and they've kind of been raised with these phones, and that's their way of communicating with each other. And especially when they're new drivers, it doesn't seem to matter. They want to use it behind the wheel. And think that they can do it all. So it's very dangerous. I mean, it's definitely not just kids. I definitely see a lot of adults where I live here in Colorado texting as well, and so behind the wheel. So it really truly is an issue for everyone who has chosen to do that behind the wheel and use their phone in any way. A texting driver is 8 times more likely to get in a crash than that of a non-texting driver, 8 times. And every single passenger that's in the car with that person that's behind the wheel, whether they're texting or not, especially for teenagers, the risk goes up by 4. It's just a disaster waiting to happen.
Shelley, but what do you say to those who know that they are skilled in multitasking? I mean, after all, everyone can drive and eat breakfast and listen to the radio and have a telephone conversation all at the same time.
There's a myth amongst us all, and I fell into this category too, of believing that I can multitask while I drive. It's something that we all figure, hey, it's our downtime, we're driving home, we have a half an hour commute. I'm going to, return phone calls and get all that done before I get home because I have time to do it. Well, what happens when you try to introduce a phone conversation while you are driving is inattention blindness, and your brain is trying to process the task of driving and trying to process this phone call or this text that you are writing or receiving. There is downtime when that happens. Your brain cannot process your entire environment in front of you. So people are going to miss exit ramps. They're going to miss lights. They're going to go too fast or too slow for the speed limit. They're not going to see, cars in front of them or bicyclists beside them or motorcyclists or pedestrians. And that is who is at risk. So when this happens, you are suffering from inattention blindness. Your brain is trying to process those two things at the same time, and it's actually called toggle tasking. Your brain cannot fully engage in the task of driving and fully engage in the task of that conversation or that text that you're trying to process at the same time. It's jumping back and forth, and when that happens, there is a reaction time that is your reaction time is decreased, and you cannot react fast enough to your driving environment and who is next to you and your speed and all of these things that you're supposed to be processing. And that is when these crashes happen. When you're suffering from inattention blindness, when you've introduced that phone conversation or that text, 50% of your processing that is supposed to be on the task of driving is shifted to process that call. You're cognitively distracted and not able to process everything in front of you.
But Shelley, won't hands-free devices eliminate distractions?
Absolutely not. Your brain is too focused on that call or that text to be able to process your driving environment and everything you need to focus on. There is so much that you have to process when you drive. It's great to have two hands on the wheel, and yes, we need two hands on the wheel, but just because your hands are on the wheel doesn't mean that your brain isn't focused on the task of driving. When you're processing a phone conversation at the same time that you're supposed to be focusing on your gas, looking in your rearview mirror, trying to see your driving environment, who's behind you, who is in front of you, is there a light coming up? What exit do I need to take? There's so much you have to process that your brain cannot process it all, and that is when these crashes happen. So Bluetooth does not make you any safer. That's just an extra hand on the wheel. That's all that is doing. Your mind still has to focus on the task of driving. It does make a huge difference, and it is not safer. All of the studies that have been done out there on this issue say that it is the same. The results are the same, whether your hand is on the wheel or not, whether you're holding a phone or not. The crashes are still happening across the board because people are cognitively distracted. Once they learn about this and they understand and can relate and say, oh, that makes sense, I think it helps people to go, you're right, I need my hands on the wheel, I need my eyes on the road, and I need to have no distractions so that I can get where I'm going safely. So a speaker system in your car does not make you safer. Your mind is still distracted, and same with the Bluetooth. The best choice is to be cell-free.
My guest today on Weekend Connection is Shelley Forney, a passionate speaker on the topic of distracted driving. Shelley, are drivers able to reduce their own risk while driving? What are some possible prevention steps?
It's very simple. Make a personal choice and commitment to say, you know what, never again. If today you were on your phone on the way to work, on the way back, you say, that's it, I'm done. I hope people after hearing this message will make that commitment to themselves and to their family and friends that they are going to be a safe driver. They are going to be a cell-free driver. That risk that driver took on November 25th of 2008, that one phone call took my daughter's life. I can never get my daughter back. She is gone. We're never going to get her back. So my goal is to educate people. I don't want them to be in our boat. I don't want them to be in my shoes. I want them to make it home and have their family there to greet them. That's what our goal is to keep people safe and through education. So taking a personal pledge for yourself and for those around you, saying, I am going to be a cell-free driver. Change your outgoing message on your cell phone to say, hey, I'm either driving or I'm unavailable. Please leave me a message. Such a simple thing to do, letting drivers know that, hey, I appreciate you calling me, but right now I have to drive, and that's the only thing that I'm doing is getting where I need to go safely. So change your outgoing message. Make a personal commitment to be a safe driver and be a cell-free driver. We ask people to spread our message. I don't want this to stop with the listeners just hearing a story and some education and stop it there, but I want them to share our story, and that's what we are here for. We're a support network, and we want people to know that there are others out there who have gone through this and who are going through the loss of a loved one, or they've survived their crash, but their lives have been forever changed because of the impact that a crash had on them and their family. Every single day, there are 9 funerals because of this problem. It's an addiction. It's an epidemic that is killing so many people, and it needs to stop. So I hope today that people really take this to heart and take it seriously, and let us know that you're on board with being a cell-free driver.
My guest today on Weekend Connection has been Shelley Forney, who, after losing her own daughter through a distracted driving accident, dove into the realm of motivational safety speaking. And her mission is to educate drivers and raise awareness about the epidemic of distracted driving that forever changed her life. Shelley, thank you again for joining us today on BBN, and I trust you'll have a very safe Thanksgiving week next week with your family.
Thank you so much. It was my pleasure to be with you today.
Thank you for listening to this feature, a production of BBN, the Bible Broadcasting Network. BBN provides 24-hour Christian programming, great Christian music, and Bible teaching. Listen to BBN by clicking the link in the description.